Greetings everyone, this is Rambling Collector here, and welcome back for another book review. The subject of this video, Shadow's Vengeance, the third book of the Shadow Souls series by R.I. Polsgrove. Now this one here was definitely a emotional roller coaster, more so than the last two. I will more than happily say that, and you will find out why as we continue. So, with that being said, let's get started, shall we? So, first and foremost, Shadow's Vengeance takes a much darker turn compared to the previous works, weaving a tale of murder and betrayal that leaves the reader hooked until the very end. And, quite honestly, the fun fact is, Shadow's Vengeance is actually the smallest of the entire series of Shadows right now. It is the smallest of books, and therefore, probably the easiest one to finish within a few days, if you really go at it. But either way, this book is definitely an emotional roller coaster, as mentioned before. A lot of the characters in this book will either feel sympathetic or fill you with anger. Some great examples include Heather, Ivan, and Sebastian. And in my opinion, Sebastian especially is a character you will grow to hate. And quite honestly, one of the major highlights for this entire book was the various different character POVs. You have many people who come through different walks of life, either being a simple farmer, the leader of a group of vampires, or even a young man being spurned by someone he loves. And honestly, that alone is what really hooks me with R.I. Polsgrove's works, is the fact that when it all boils down, when you take away the vampires, the werewolves, and things like that, it all boils down to just people making their choices, living their lives, and in some cases, a lot of cases actually, reaping the consequences of said actions. Now, I will try not to spoil too much about the book, because I want to preserve the surprise for all of you when you do eventually pick this one up. But I will say one other major highlight is that this book, in all honesty, does paint a somewhat realistic picture of war. Sometimes some parties of soldiers do not make it out alive due to unforeseen circumstances. A harsh reminder that in wars there will always be losses. And in all honesty, I feel like that's what makes this one really stand out, because in the last two books we see Quinn gathering forces, preparing to expand his reach and really make an impact on the war in the New World against the werewolves. Book 2, we see Thea gaining a lot of ground, taking down werewolf fortresses, and generally building up a great society of vampires in her own circle and really growing as a leader. And in this particular case, though, with Heather, we see her struggling with leadership throughout the book. We see her struggling to make her decisions, trying to at least open up to people and make plans. We see how she constantly refers to the fact that Quinn chose her, and she keeps trying to live up to the standard that he set. Unfortunately, she falls very short very quickly, making a lot of incredibly irresponsible decisions that really does come back to bite the group in the long run. And again, will not spoil too much here. I want to preserve the surprise when you do read the book, but I will say the two characters that I absolutely will feel loathing to the end of this series will definitely be Sebastian and Ivan. Ivan is a little bit more sympathetic in some cases, but Sebastian, absolutely not. But, that being said, let's continue, shall we? So, random thoughts here for a moment, if I may. Now, the Shadow Soul series has actually been really, really good so far. And again, this one is in fact the smallest of the bunch, at only nearly 200 pages. But I will say this much as a bit of a surprise. One of the major characters of the Dead Souls universe does make a very surprise appearance at the end of this book, that being Lucas. Now, Lucas is definitely a fun character for those of you who have followed the Dead Souls series. However, a lot of his backstory is left unexplored, but in the end of this book, you will get a nice little indicator of where he comes from and a little bit about his childhood. But, again, that is up for you to see. Though in all honesty, I really am looking forward to the day whenever we do get more of Lucas's backstory, because for me, I want to see more of the rest of the quartet from Dead Souls. I want to learn more. And as a matter of fact, the author has been releasing the Victim Chronicles, which does actually show a little bit more of the main 4 quartet, in one way or another, with the new Victim Chronicles that they've been releasing for Kindle. Quinn's victim, Lucas's victim, Natalie's victim, and Rianne's victim. But this is one of the things I am looking forward to seeing more of with future pieces, especially with regards to Dead Souls and even Into the Darkness. I am really looking forward to learning more, because in my opinion, Quinn's backstory is very much fleshed out to the point that I am curious to want to learn more about the other characters. So whenever we do get a Lucas backstory or a piece, or we get to see more of the main series of Dead Souls, I'm all for it. To be completely honest with you, I want to learn more about these characters, but especially more of the backstory pieces, because this world feels very fleshed out with the various characters in here. And while that can be extremely filling, let me provide a great example with Game of Thrones. We meet all these individual people, and at times the setting can feel crowded because of the sheer immense quantity of people. But that really highlights just how vast the world is, how very lived in it can feel. Dead Souls, I feel, does provide that, especially with all the many various spin-off series from it, with Into the Darkness and now the Shadow Souls series. It paints the world in a much larger brush, and honestly, it still leaves me excited to want to learn more and see more from this universe. But with that being said, let's move on to the final score. So, I would have to give Shadow's Vengeance, Book 3, a solid 9 out of 10, in my personal opinion. It had a really great, gripping plot that kept me coming back for more. I loved how each of the characters had their own POV chapters in one way or another, and we really get to see more characters fleshed out, but also the darker, twisting turns that this story did provide. And honestly, this just leaves me excited for the next book of this series in particular. But for you all watching, thank you for sticking around to the end of the video. It really means a lot to me if you've stuck around to the end here. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like, comment your thoughts down below, and subscribe if you're curious for more future videos from this channel. If you want to check out more of R.I. Polsgrove's works, I will leave a link to that playlist here at the end of this video. But if you're curious and want to check out some of the other indie authors that I've reviewed on this channel, I will leave a link to that playlist as well for you all to see. Once again, thank you all so much for listening. It really warms my heart that you listen to this crazy man rambling about something he loves when it comes to books. And once again, if you have any suggestions for any future videos, please feel free to let me know in the comment section down below. I am always eager for more suggestions for future reads, especially if they are little or not well known. I'm always curious for more knowledge. And once again, thank you all for listening. This is Rambling Collector, signing off for now, and I will see you all in the next video. Have a great day, fellow readers.